Hello everybody, welcome back. Um, well, the west, the East Coast was hit by the hurricane, as many of you know. Um, so I wanted to start out, I feel very blessed. Um, we, meaning my husband and my family right here in Warwick, Rhode Island, um, were just slightly affected. Much less than what our news forecasters had anticipated, but there are many Rhode Islanders that were hit very hard, and many other people in other states as well. So I just want to let you all know that you're all in my thoughts and my prayers. I hope that you're all safe, and we are in the hurricane season, so hopefully this is the one for the year. We shall see. So I wanted today, was working on putting pages in all of the journals. I've got pages in 4 of them so far. I mean, I haven't stitched them in, but I've gathered my pages, which takes me absolutely forever. It took me all day yesterday. I probably spent 7 hours just getting the pages together for the first 4. The 5th journal I'll work on, but I wanted to go ahead and come back. I wasn't going to film this. I'm just going to stitch these pages in this journal with the 3-hole pamphlet stitch. But I happen to think, you know, if there's somebody new watching or whatever, they may want to see this. So all I've done is I've taken my signature, I've made sure that my pages are lined up where I want them, and I placed my signature in the journal, and I've secured it with my clips. I have a book here that is, I'm going to have to find another one pretty soon because it's getting pretty full holes. And I am just going to, well, maybe I'll measure for the sake of people that measure. So I am about there is my center. So I'm just going to poke my first hole. And of course you're going to get all the way through, and then I'm going to come down. I like to come down about 1/2 inch. I'll do the same on the bottom here, roughly. There we go. Oh. Weird thing was, I think I probably mentioned it last week, I had no idea that there was even a storm in existence. That I don't pay any attention to news, clearly. And when my husband came home Friday, was it Friday? Yeah, Friday. He was in complete panic mode, saying, hey, we're supposed to get hit really hard by this storm. We got to get, you know, patio furniture and all this stuff put away. I was like, what storm? What are you talking about? Well, then we found out. But as I mentioned, you know, we had a lot of wind, a lot of wind, rain. For us specifically, right where we are, I mean, this storm, you just go a few miles away and, you know, it was different. But for us specifically, I mean, we got rain. I wouldn't call it downpour, you know, but more wind than rain as far as, you know, our household went. And very little. I'm going to grab my little absolute pliers. Sometimes that just helps to pull that needle through. Now I chose just to use white. I don't know if I'm putting anything on my spine here. I may or may not. There's, oh, what did I, there we go. There's a lot of questions in my head as I was putting pages in as to what I was and wasn't going to do to these journals. Sometimes I feel like the person may want to make them their own, you know? So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do at this point. I'm sure I will add a couple pockets and tucks, put some ephemera in them, but I don't think I'm going to do anything too awful elaborate. And I'm just going to, as usual, I leave my strings until I determine if I'm going to put a charm on the end or something like that. So you saw how easy that is. I'm just going to set these aside because my plan is to go ahead and stitch the second journal as well. That one is going to be more time consuming because I'm going to use that crisscross technique. These are the papers. I can share that with you. A lot of these papers are by Ruby and Pearl XO. Just sort of flattening out my pages as I go. It'll flip out. Like on this, this specific journal, I wanted a Paris theme. And so I waited. I ordered some book pages and ephemera for Paris themed type thing. And I will say that I was a bit disappointed with what I got. But this is one of the papers I got. And it has a photo on it that I really don't like. So I want to cover that. But I like the front because it is written in French. This is, I printed on vellum. I just sort of carried, well, tried to carry that paper through. Just because I really liked it. And I mean, I loved the other papers that were with it, but I just didn't feel like they really matched. So I didn't use them. I will use them in other journals for sure, but for some reason, I didn't in this. I really love this. There's another one of those pages that have that green on it. That's the center. I plan on adding something to this here. I don't know what that something is yet, but I do intend on adding something. That's another little fold out. That's the other side of that picture. I guess she must be dreaming of maybe her a man she loves. I don't know. But I don't know without being able to speak French. I might make that into a tuck or something there. But as I mentioned, I don't plan on doing, I mean, I'm going to add some stuff, and I have some little pieces of Paris ephemera. I'll make a couple tags, you know, that type of thing. Put a couple pockets in, but I'm not going to go too crazy. I don't think. And then I'll determine. And right now it looks a little bit thin. But let's see. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 pages. So multiply that times 4, 24, what is that? 18. Is that right? 54? 72. Boy, I was wrong. So you got 72 fronts and backs in this. So I feel like if I add too much, you know, the journal's going to be fat before the person, you know, that receives this even gets it. So that's why I was like, you know, I'm going to lightly decorate, include some ephemera, and figure out if I do a closure or not. I'm sorry, my allergies are very bad today. I need to get a drink in my throat. My throat keeps getting one of those horrible tickles in it. Alright, so there's that one. I'm going to turn you off, and I'm going to get set up to do this next one. And I will be back. Okay, so if you recall, this was the second journal, just collaged, and I decided I wanted to do the cross stitching of the signatures. Initially I was going to put 5 signatures in this. I ended up making 7. They're going to have less pages in them. Right now they have 6 pages, and I may take time. I wanted to add some sort of color to them, so I might print out some kind of printable for each one of them with a little bit of color, just so you sort of see. They all have Tim Holtz of some sort on the outside. On the inside, you know, they have a variety of papers and book pages, German invoices, that type of thing. But I think I'm going to add, I'm going to think about that once we stitch this in, if I'm going to add, once we talk about our stitching, and before I stitch the signatures in, if I go ahead and choose to add another page to each of them. I'm pretty sure I'm going to round these corners on here. And once again, these journals are in no way complete. I don't plan on doing a whole lot to them, but I am going to, you know, add a couple pockets. I think some envelope flips, you know, that type of thing. But I'm not going to take it to the extreme that I normally do, because I think in this particular batch, I think the last, if I do any Foley dress, it's going to be the first and the last journal, because those two I don't know. I just, as I look at what I've done, you'll see as we go along, because I'll bring you along for that process. So I'm going to set these aside for now. And for the cross stitch, or for anybody that's never stitched into the spine, it's really important, especially for the cross stitch, that your holes are even and in line. In order to do that, what I've done, I've just cut out a piece of cardstock. This spine is 2.5 inches. So I cut out my template the same width as my spine. And this template is going to be used to poke the holes in the spine. We'll have to make a separate template for the signatures. Alright, so what I did, always, the first and most important thing you can do is list down the top. That way, no matter what, you line up your top, you're going to be even, and especially when you go to sew your signatures in, it's really important that you label the top so that all your holes for all your journals line up. So then the next thing is, on this, is to decide where your signatures are going to be placed. I have 7 signatures, and I was playing around with this earlier. You can see all my scribbling. Because I was trying to determine, I was just going to do 5 holes as far as here. And then I thought, well, maybe I should do more because it's going to make my cross stitches larger. So I was thinking about 7, and then I went back to, I'm fine with just how large these cross stitches are going to be. That's what I'm doing. So the easiest way to figure out where your signatures need to be is to cut out a piece of paper, fold it in half to find your center. Find your centers. That's what I do anyway. That helps me. Since I'm working with 7 signatures, it's going to be odd numbers, right? So you know your center is your center, and then I'm going to have 3 signatures on either side of that center. I've already figured out where everything is going, as you can see from my marks on here. And this template represents the outside of my spine here. This piece of paper is cut a little bit smaller so that I sort of have a border around. You know what I mean? A border at the top, the bottom, and either side. So instead of redrawing all these lines, I am just going to mark from this. I could redraw the lines, I just don't want to. I'm going to be completely honest. So I know that when I was working on this little template, this is where I was leaving roughly 1/4 of an inch on either side. Here's my center. Now I'm just making these lines. And I'm going to do it at the bottom too. I want to make sure I'm as straight as possible, which I never am, but I want to be as straight as I can be. And then I'll take my ruler, and for my template, I just draw my lines all the way down because it's going to help me. I think after, years ago, it seemed like the only type of journal I made involved this. And then I started doing some 3-hole pamphlet stitches, and I was like, oh, it's so much easier than this. Not that this is difficult, it's just, it's very time consuming. But I like the outcome of it. I made a Christmas journal. Oh gosh, it was probably, I bet it was 3-4 years ago for my daughter-in-law. And for some reason, the cover of that journal, it just cried out for cross stitch on the spine. And it took me forever. But she loved her journal, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So now what I'm doing, I'm just going to mark my lines here. So that I know going across, it might help if I would line it up some way. At the end of the day, well, I think it matters on the cross stitch, so I hope that this comes out as perfect as I want it to. I have a tendency to always hold my paper at a slant. Oh, come on, Sheila. Had that lined up good where that was giving me a point of reference. And then what I do, I got, oh wait a minute, is this the very top? Yeah, that's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I usually mark like this. You don't have to. It just helps me as I'm poking all those holes, because I have to poke holes, of course, at all these intersections, because we have 7 signatures and we're doing 5 holes. This one I could bring down a little bit, I think. Easiest way is to, yeah, that's centered. That's good. Okay, so that's my template for my spine. And then in my spine, line it up. Hold it in place. And then take the old trusty awl. I always want to say owl. Awl. And I'm just making sure that's where my spine bends. There we go. I just got to hold this. And you just start punching your holes. which is actually no fun at all. I'm going into my I don't know if I went all the way through or not. Ouch. I'm sorry if all you're seeing is my elbow. Okay, so at each of the intersections we have to poke those holes. So I'm going to continue on because I don't think you want to watch me do this for 20 minutes. But that's how we get the holes in the spine. I will be back. Okay, I am back. And as you can see, or hopefully see, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, I have all my holes punched. And I had to go back through the back and verify through the back as well that they made it all the way through. And the ones that didn't, you can see what I did to my, I should have never done that on top of my board here, but I did. But I went back through any of the holes that I couldn't see from the outside and poked through that way as well. Now the next thing that you need to do is first of all, I rounded my corners on my journal covers, or signature covers. I call them covers because I covered them all with a piece of cardstock. And what I do, I figure out where I want the top and bottom of my journal to land in the signature. And I have another piece of cardstock, and I like to fold it. I just lay this on the edge. And this is how I do it. I'm not saying this is the only way. Where's my top? Let's mark the top again. T for top. I line that up at the top. Oh, you know what I just saw? Just saw there I have top with my pen. So I'll just flip that around. Line it up at the top. I've got this set next to my holes. And I'm just going to make a mark. And then I'll just bring that out. Make sure it's good and dark where you can see it. This aside. Bring out my book. Do I have my awl still out? There we go. There it is. to start with one. A lot of times I will start with, when they're this thin, I'll do a couple at a time. But here's my top. I line it up here. And just continue on. I think I'm going to do 2 at a time. Don't recommend this if you're not comfortable with it, but these signatures are thin enough, I think, that I can do it as long as I line everything up appropriately. Come on, Sheila. I'll just continue to do my holes and I will be back. Hello, I am back and I've got all my holes in. I've gone through and lined up my pages, and I'm going to be honest with you, I was going to use DMC floss to do this because you're going up and down on the inside of these signatures with the thread a couple times, and I found that it just, this thread is not strong. You can't tie it tight, and that was becoming an impediment to me. So I'm using waxed linen thread. It's my thread of choice for bookbinding. And you can tie it without much of an issue. It stays in place where you want it, that type of thing. So that's why I'm going with this thread. And as you can see, I chose brown. So I have my first and second signatures. I have secured the pages with clips because this becomes quite fiddly, to be quite honest. So I am going to start by going through, hopefully going through, let me see if I got this right, my first hole of my first signature. I tied a knot here, but I left a long tail, and I just sort of want to keep that sort of loose at the moment, and I'm leaving that tail because I want to be able to tie this onto threads in here to get this good and tight. So I've come through the first hole. I'm going through the first hole of the first row in the spine. And I don't know how well I'm going to be able to demonstrate this because it becomes very fiddly. Okay, there's my hole. I'm on the outside. Let me move these. And on the outside of the spine, I use it where my holes are punched to be able to tell where do I need to go in order to make my letter X. So I'm going to go down in the second hole of the second signature to start that X. If I went straight, it would just be lines. So I'm going over to the second signature. Second signature, second hole. So you're always working with 2 signatures at a time. And that's what makes this a little bit fiddly. And I think once you get a rhythm going, it's going to get a little bit easier. So I'm just looking on the outside. I'm paying attention to this top thread in my first signature. So inside the signature, of course, you can only go up or down. So I haven't been in the top hole. I'm going to go through the top hole of my second signature. Brings me out at the top on the outside. And then to make my letter X, I need to go to that second hole of the first signature. So it's just a matter of watching what you're doing on the outside of the spine to make the letter X. And then on the inside of the spine, you can only go up or down. And you make that choice based on where you need your needle to come up to make that letter X. Bear with me just a moment here while I fiddle with this stuff. I don't think that's where I wanted that. That'll be alright. So you can see we've already made the first X. And we are on the inside of the first signature. So I need to go down, going down to the center hole now, which is bringing me up down here on the spine. And once again, I'm paying attention, where do I need to take this thread to make that next X? And it's going to be that second hole of the second signature. So I flip to my second signature. Bring this in. Go through this second hole. Down. Pulling my thread tight, but I'm keeping track of this because I want to be able to tie that off good to keep everything good and tight. Coming across and back into the second hole on my first signature. I wasn't going to use my wax linen because it's a little bit thicker. You can get through here. Paying attention where my needle's going here. There we go. Sometimes your book has to be at a certain angle to get that needle to go through. There we go. So we have our second cross. I'm going to go down. Once again, I'm pulling my thread tight, watching this. To make my next X, once again, I come over here to the second signature in the third hole. I find if my book is at a certain angle, then it makes that needle go through the signature much easier. Yeah, there we go. Pulling it tight once again. Come down. Back up to the first signature, the third hole. The whole time, all you're doing is paying attention how you're making your letter X. And on the inside of the signature, you're basically working your way down. That's the easiest way I have to describe it. And I hope that is helping for anybody that hasn't done this. And I'm sure there are videos out there that will probably explain this process a lot better than what I am able to do. Once again, going down, this time to the bottom, maybe, if I can find the bottom. Come on, Sheila. There we go. So you can see it's a little bit fiddly. But what I like to do is turn on a video and just take my time and try to enjoy the process. Sometimes it gets a little bit tedious, a little bit frustrating because you're fumbling through, you know, two signatures at once, but you know, I hope I have enough thread. Every time I think I have enough thread, I'm running short. I need to be able to come back up, tie off. There we go. My thread's going to be close. Very close. Back up through here. Where's my needle? Try to find which thread is. Ugh, look how short that thread is. Try to avoid that. If you can avoid that, avoid it. So I'm going to wrap it. For me, that's the hardest thing about this, is making sure your threads are tight. I'm just going to tie a knot. This thread I'm going to bring down here. And go back up and tie a knot. So we have our first row of cross stitches. I'm going to secure my first journal to the front here because I'm done with it, but I will be working in the second journal to secure it to the third journal. Let's see. And once again, we're just going to start the same old way. I need to cut this off. So I'm going to start in this hole, going down to the front, and I'll bring you along for this. I just need to turn the camera off real quick for just a moment. I'll sew in one more signature with you, and then I'll break away and finish the stitching. But I just love the way you can see the fabric in between the signatures. That's just me. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back, and I realized, I brought you along while I sewed in the second signature, but I realized that my microphone was off, so I'm going to bring you along. I am sewing in the last signature, and I'm really pleased with the way the spine is looking this far. And I'll tell you, the trick is really, quite honestly, this wax thread. This wax thread makes it so much easier. I say that and then I can't get my needle threaded, and that's because of all the wax that's built up in the eye. Let me just cut my thread here. Should have threaded my needle before I turned the camera on. I'm just tying, this has really worked out well for me to tie a double knot before I start sewing this in. Oh, I say that and then I get my knots apart. Guess this one's going to be a triple knot. I hate that happened. There we go. Alright, so every signature is basically, the process is the same. This is the first, and this is the next signature. So you go into your first signature at the top. I need to get my book. Look where you need to go to make your X, which would be the second hole of the next signature. Oh, I just realized I don't have this signature. Snap it in. Just makes it a little bit easier and less floppier. It's fiddly, but as I've gone along, after you do a couple signatures, it really starts to get a whole lot easier. So I'm going into the second hole. Just pulling my thread tight up to the top. Pull my thread tight. Just watch where you need to go to make your cross on the outside. So the second hole of the, what would that be? The sixth signature at this point. And it does help to have a little pair of pliers as you're doing this. I'm going down. I need to come back up so I can start that X. Going up into the sixth signature again. Down. Hope I made my string long enough. Watching again, where does my string need to go to make that X? And it needs to go down into the last signature. Up. Down into the next to last hole of the sixth signature. Tail's getting caught, and I think I got this string a little bit short for this last signature, I think. Going down. Come on. You can do it. Pulling it tight, going up into the next of the last hole of the last signature. And my string's getting short. Don't like that. I was measuring my string for this. Oh, that might be too short. I don't know if I have enough string left here. I'm not going to. So what I'm going to do, because I made a boo-boo, I'm going to pull this back out. I'm going to knot this. I'm going to wrap it around. Just trying to secure it so it doesn't come undone. I have been so careful, making sure I have plenty of thread. And for some reason, when I was threading the needle, I was like measuring the lengths, and I did 2.5, and I think I've been doing 3.5, just to make sure. Try this end. Just trying to use a piece of the extra that I had off of an end. I'd much rather have too much thread than not enough. But we will be able to fix this. So I'm going to double knot this end. That's the great thing about this thread. You're not staying in place. It makes it so easy. Okay, so I need to go down here. I need to come out here. And up into the 6th signature. Got it. And then I'm going to knot it off. And I've just been running my needle around the thread a couple times. Back down through it. And knotting it. I like to keep track of my needle for my signatures. It's the one thing that is always consistently in the same spot. Then we can undo all of our brackets here. I'm going to cut some of this thread off. Just pressing my signatures into place. So we have 7 signatures in there. And this is what the spine looks like. I think it looks awesome. I think it adds so much to the journal. And you know, as we, we'll add some things to this journal as we go along. I'm not going to add a whole bunch, but I might add, a couple pockets or a couple things. Because I think this is the perfect journal for, I don't know, just for collage, whatever you want to do, because you can add tip-ins, you can add your own pockets, tabs. Just has a variety of different kinds of papers in it. This one, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I added ledger, and I think this is yeah, this is I believe French book page. These are the papers I printed earlier today to add something more to it. This is vintage ledger. This tape that you see here, I might put a little, well, I'll leave that. Maybe I'll add some washi to that. No, I'll add some of this. This is, first aid tape. But I love using it to reinforce the pages. I just want to put, this piece is very, very fragile. But I put some kind of German receipt in each of these signatures. This is just a flap left from the vintage ledger paper. I figured something could be added there to that flap. Dictionary page. They all have a book page, vintage ledger, German receipt of some sort. Vintage book page. I really like this journal. My problem is I like them all. Any kind of journal. And I left that. I think this is my 4th journal. No, that's the 3rd. I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. Trim that. They all have similar pages. I used, as you can see, Tim Holtz on the cover of each of the signatures. Some Sears and Roebuck. More vintage book page. Another German receipt of some sort. You get the drift. I'm not going to take you all the way through this, but I'm really pleased with it. I just love that spine. But I was thinking about this journal, and I thought, and I don't know if I would want to or not, but you could always put like gilding wax around the edges and around the seam here. You wanted to add something more. I love it the way it is. That's just me. And, you know, it has plenty of room to grow. And that's the thing I've been most concerned about in making journals lately, is giving the recipient plenty of room to do their thing to it. But that's the second journal. Stitched in. I will be back tomorrow. And I don't know. I might be able to get the third and fourth one done tomorrow. I still have to assemble the pages for the fifth journal. So I'm trying to get that done so we can stitch that in as well. But I wanted to get this out, let you see. I just love that stitching on the side of this. I think it just sort of goes with the patchwork. I sort of consider this patchwork. But anyway, there you go. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope in some weird way it helped you. And I hope that I explained this as clear as possible. It's just hard because it's so fiddly, and trying to film it at the same time is a little bit difficult. But anyway, enjoy the rest of your day. Happy crafting, and I'll be back real soon. Bye-bye.